Joel Klatt says Dan Lanning wins a national championship at Oregon within the next 5 years. Well, this year could be a good start.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with all things Oregon Ducks, which is why if you've not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch the show, which today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It is that simple, though. Could Jordan James do something not seen at Oregon in 7 years? And we've got that Team Out West episode 3 all coming up on today's show, but not the literal video, but my thoughts on episode 3 of that Team Out West. Joel Klatt was listening to a show the other day, and he gets a question that was, shall we say, fascinating. Who wins a national championship first? Kalen DeBoer at Alabama or Dan Lanning at Oregon? Now, I thought about trying to answer that question on today's show. It's a pretty difficult question to answer because Oregon fans know very well Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. He is at a very prestigious program. If you look at this year, though, Oregon has a better chance of winning a national championship, at least according to the odds, than does Alabama. I think Oregon has a more favorable schedule than the Crimson Tide, though I do expect Alabama to be very good this year. I think this is the most likely year for Alabama to be far away from the national championship by their standards. Not by everybody else's standards, but by Alabama's standards. Whereas Oregon should be as close to the national championship hunt this year as they have been in my lifetime. The last time Oregon had this level of preseason expectation and hype and legitimate potential that is more than just hype was the last time they went to the national championship game. And there have been other seasons where Oregon's been highly regarded and ranked highly in the preseason polls. You know, they're third in the AP going into this 2024 campaign. They've been number 2 before. They've never been a preseason number 1, but they have been highly ranked going into the year before. But just so many factors line up for Oregon. Yes, they're going into a new conference, but you have a third-year head coach, not a first-year or first-time head coach at his new school, which is what you have with Kalen DeBoer down at Alabama. But I thought Klatt's comments were very clear and well-reasoned, and he talked a lot about talent acquisition, recruiting. Oregon fans know pretty well at this point, yeah, recruiting matters. Turns out all the big programs, they're still recruiting at a high level. High school portal doesn't matter. I'm really interested to see. Going into this year, I have national championship aspirations for Oregon. Am I going to feel that way again next year? I don't know. I think so, with the way they've recruited. But can I say that with any certainty right now? No. I say that with a greater level of certainty with regards to Alabama because I have seen them as a program churn out national championship caliber teams over and over and over. When was the last time Oregon had this good of a chance to play for a national championship? Probably a season ago, if we're being honest. And before that, you could look at 2021, that win at Ohio State, that was big time, put Oregon into the playoff picture immediately, and then you saw that team kind of hit their ceiling in that game, they peaked, and they were never actually a national title contender. You could go to 2019, and again, really, really good team. Pac-12 champion, beat a really good Utah team that was on the doorstep of the college football playoff, and then when you look at the underlying numbers, like, yeah, Herbert was really good. His college numbers weren't great. He should have been a lot better, but that's a different conversation. That defense was really good, but was that team actually capable of competing for a national championship? No. I think if they had beaten Arizona State and gotten into the playoff and played that LSU team, like everybody else that played LSU, they would have lost probably by multiple possessions. An undefeated Clemson team with Trevor Lawrence lost by 17 points in the national title game, for goodness sakes. So I think this is a really, really great shot. And I think that Klatt is not just gassing up Oregon fans by saying Lanning will win a national championship within the next 5 years. The ingredients are there. You've seen him improve as a coach from year 1 to year 2 with his in-game decisions and just overall game planning and such. Still, progress can be made. I don't think anyone would deny that. And there are going to be some legitimate tests this year, particularly October 12th at Ohio State, which I'll also talk about later in today's show. By the way, 10 days to Oregon football. Yeah, how about that? But winning a national championship before Kalen DeBoer, that might come down to whether Oregon wins the national championship this season, which they're capable of. But it'll also depend on how Lanning is able to reload. You think about what Oregon's going to lose after this season, it's a lot. There are a lot of big-time seniors, guys like Jeff Bossa, Jabbar Muhammad, Jordan Burch. I know they've got talented players. I know they're going to bring in guys from the transfer portal. But can you guarantee me right now that the 2025 Oregon team is going to have the same level of hype, the same level of expectations, and the same level of talent as this year's team? It's a pretty high bar to set. It is incredibly high bar to set when you think about both tackles could be gone to the NFL. Johnny Cornelius, I'm pretty sure, is out of eligibility, but both guys are probably gone after this year anyway. Marcus Harper's done after this year. You just keep going down the list, and you can have a lot of turnover there. But I listened to that, and I thought, in the next 5 years? Yeah, he could. This might be the best year for Oregon to win when Alabama is not in the picture, but Alabama is, of course, not the only hurdle for Oregon to go win their first national championship. But speaking of Marcus Harper, Josh Connerly, Johnny Cornelius, and the rest of the offensive line, there have been little tidbits and hints, whether you looked at that Team Out West video or reports coming here or there, that Charlie Pickard could be starting at center because of the injury to Matthew Bedford that I talked about on yesterday's show. I think it's something to monitor, not worry about, but it is definitely, it could become something to worry about depending on how everybody performs. Charlie Pickard, a former walk-on. Now, he had offers from Oregon, which was the most prestigious school that had offered him. He's a Jesuit high school grad from back in the day. He was a 3-star recruit, according to 24/7 Sports. Wasn't a super highly regarded guy. His FBS offers were Oregon, Oregon State, and then a trio of Mountain West schools, Air Force, San Diego State, and San Jose State. So was not a super highly regarded guy, but has been in the program for the last couple of years. We saw him snap and play center in the spring game. He looked fine. He looked capable. Was he going to be the backup going into this year? Yeah. Do we actually know that he's the starting center? Also no, which is one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up on today's show is we don't know what the depth chart is actually going to be. They might be, if you see or hear about a drill or a video or a snippet or a picture or like whatever you put together to say, oh, Charlie Pickard could be the starting center. That makes me feel nervous. He's a former walk-on. Former walk-on is not telling the entire story about what he is as a football player and what he was as a recruit coming out of high school. It's also not like he's a true freshman that is being thrust into that particular role. But if he does, also remember what I said on yesterday's show. For the first 3 games, really the first 5, should not matter. Once you get to Ohio State and Michigan and those defensive lines, if you're rolling with an offensive line that is looking like it's a little shaky at times because you don't have Matthew Bedford in there, the Indiana transfer, yeah, I could see that becoming a problem in one of those games because Ohio State and Michigan have such gnarly defensive fronts. But if Bedford just misses the first 3 games, like if he's out the non-conference slate and misses the UCLA game, but then is back for Michigan State, or if he's back for UCLA in time for conference play, I don't think this is something Oregon fans will notice in a significant way. It's all about getting him back and healthy for that Ohio State game. I think that is just critically important because Charlie Pickard, haven't seen him play. Maybe he goes out and wows everybody. And he was just a wildly under-recruited guy, and he turns around and gets one of those he earned a scholarship videos that you see in college sports all the time that I think are awesome. Because he goes out and just absolutely kills it in the first 3 games. And Oregon dominates, and they run the ball well, and they protect Dylan Gabriel. Maybe. I don't know. But I think it's too early to jump on Charlie Pickard's a starting center. No, we'll see. We'll see. It's a question mark. It's something I'm going to be watching. But this is why I'm really glad that in 10 days, Oregon plays Idaho. That's kind of the perfect way to start the season when you get this kind of wrench thrown into the process this late in the cycle. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments, which you all do anyway. But you know what? It's never harmful to send a little reminder out there that you can. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, as well. Jordan James one of you thinks that Jordan James is going to do something that hasn't been seen in Oregon football, technically, since 2017. That's coming up next. Coming up first is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. How about that? Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got a bunch of great stuff over there at Game Time. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Whatever you're looking for, you get a panoramic view of your seat before you arrive so you know exactly what to expect. They've got their lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel here at the Locked On Network. Why? Because they're America's number one sportsbook. Like a foam finger at a baseball game. We're number one. We're number one. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. I paused there just to let that sink in a little bit. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Plus, they've got everything you want for college football, which starts this weekend. Florida State, Georgia Tech in Ireland. That's 3 days away. How about that? Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's number one sportsbook. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sportsbook sponsor here at the Locked On Network. Oregon's had some great running backs, man. Some great running backs. And a lot of you are very confident in Jordan James. Why? Jordan James is a very good football player and could have a spectacular season. Could Jordan James do something that hasn't been seen since 2017? So, if you want to get it in the mailbag, you can become a Locked On Ducks insider for priority access. That link is in the description below. Or you drop a YouTube comment, hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @McLaughlinCFB or at Locked On Ducks. DMs and mentions always wide open. Even if you don't want to say something nice, you can say it anyway. You won't hurt my feelings, though some of you certainly try. Gavin sends in what we'll call an Oregon bold take here. Jordan James for 1,300 yards this year. Now, when I first saw that number, my reaction was, whoa, that's a low price. No, I'm kidding. If you understand that reference, let me know. But my first reaction was, whoa, that's a big number. 1,300 yards. I mean, oh gosh. In a crowded backfield, that's tough. Then you look at the numbers, and it's actually not the craziest suggestion whatsoever for 2 reasons. Number one, Jordan James, very talented player. He's going to have the heaviest workload of his career. And in an era of transfers and weird eligibility rules, Jordan James has followed like the most traditional career trajectory for a running back that you have in college football. For all you traditional college football fans out there, Jordan James is your guy. He comes in as a blue chip true freshman in 2022. He has a specific role, but nothing really more. You see glimpses, but it's just kind of, all right, he does the one thing. Then last year, he is thrust into a larger role. He was going to have a bigger role in the offense before Whittington went down. He shines in that role, and now he could go out and have an all-conference caliber season. So last year, Bucky Irving ran for just over 1,200 yards, 1,216 to be exact. The year prior, when you had 3 running backs in the backfield, Bucky Irving went for 1,088 yards. Now in 2021, Travis Dye, who had C.J. Verdell for a little while until Verdell got hurt, went for 1,284. So 16 yards shy of hitting the 1,300 mark. But the question that Gavin submitted, or the take that he submitted, was that he goes for 1,300 yards. C.J. Verdell in 2019, of course, nobody could achieve that many yards with Oregon's season in 2020 because they played half a year. C.J. Verdell had 1,238 yards. The last season that Oregon had a running back with over 1,300 yards. Royce Freeman back in 2017. That is Oregon's all-time leading rusher, by the way, if you did not know. With over 5,000 career rushing yards, he and LaMichael are both in the 5,000 club. But at first, I was kind of thinking, I don't know if James can get to that number. I still think it's tricky depending upon what role Jay Harris plays. The Northwest Missouri State transfer, he was a D2 All-American. Either him or Jaden Lamar, I can see having a role in this offense. I think Harris more as a smash-mouth goal line back, like Cyrus Abibi-Likio or Jordan James of 2 years ago. And Jaden Lamar could have kind of a Sean Dollars role from a couple seasons ago, Dan Lanning's first at the helm, when, Dollars came in certain packages, pass-catching situations, and was solid, but was not a feature part of the offense. I think that's what would hold him back, because James certainly looks like he's going to be the number one guy, and I'm as big a Noah Whittington fan as I know. Like, I'm supremely high. I think when Whittington was working his way back from the injury, there were several Oregon fans. I don't think it was a lot, but there were several who just kind of forgot about how good he was. And I was kind of going, watch this guy. Remember what he did? Remember how good this guy is at running back? I wouldn't be surprised if the backfield is more of a 1A, 1B rather than RB1 and RB2. But if Jordan James has that RB1 position, yeah, I do think he is talented enough with the way that he just runs through tackles. Bucky Irving had a lot of lateral movement, which Jordan James has some of, but he has, I think, greater speed in the open field to break long runs, but also a greater propensity to just run through tackles. Like Bucky Irving had a lot of stop and start, side-to-side movement, and he had some runs where you just went, wait, how is he still running? How is he still on his feet? I think for Jordan James, if he is the number one running back and he gets hot behind this offensive line and they're able to provide the same sorts of running lanes that they did a year ago, yeah, I don't think a 1,300-yard season is out of the question. I mean, the last guy that was close, Travis Dye in 2021, I like Travis Dye. Do I think Dye is as talented as Jordan James? I think they're different. And I think James is every bit as talented as Travis Dye. Again, not as shifty with his lateral side-to-side movement, but certainly capable of being a feature back that pushes for that sort of number. I think the commitment to the run is going to be there, which is the other consideration you have to factor in when thinking about, is a running back going to hit 1,000 yards? Like Oregon's had a 1,000-yard rusher basically always. That's just kind of a standard. It's a matter of who, not if. And I think Jordan James can be that guy. But maybe Noah Whittington is that guy. Maybe there are 2,000-yard rushers. Might depend on how each game kind of plays out with the script and how pass heavy they get. But a take that on the surface I thought was really bold. I looked at it and went, maybe not. Does Jordan James go for 1,300 yards this year? You tell me in the comments below. This question came from Aaron Turn 59594. With every wide receiver being a little bit different, according to Tez in a lot of ways, like how every PGA golfer is a bit different, how would you compare the wide receivers to the pro golfers? Well, let's just hit the starters here. So, Trayshawn Holden is the biggest of the bunch. That makes him Bryson DeChambeau. He's kind of the thumper, Evan Stewart is the most well-rounded guy. Who has the most well-rounded golf game in the world? Scotty Scheffler. So Evan Stewart is Scotty Scheffler. And then Tez Johnson is a little bit smaller, but it's not about the size of the dog or the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. And Tez Johnson has certainly got that. He is small, but he is mighty. You know who's not a big guy? I have stood close to him on a couple of occasions. Rory McIlroy is not a big guy. He's pretty small. So I love that question. I would love to compare every Oregon football player to a golfer here on the show, but I expect those to be Oregon's 3 leading wide receivers. In what order? Now we get into a really fun prediction season. The season's 10 days away, by the way. Tez or Evan Stewart? One of those guys is going to lead Oregon in receiving. But who leads them in receptions? Who leads them in yards? Who leads them in touchdowns? I could see a world where you have 3 different guys leading in each of those respective categories at the wide receiver position. I'm just saying I could see it. I'm not saying I'm predicting it. I'm saying it's feasible. Last year you had the receptions, yards, and touchdowns split 2-1 between Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson. kind of a fun thought exercise. Explore in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter. So that team out west dropped a third episode. As usual, magnificent stuff. Full reaction to that and one more mailbag question about Ohio State. That's coming up next. Coming up right now is Ibata, because sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids, what do these have in common? You've probably bought a lot this summer or still buying a lot, but you don't need to stress about the cost. Ibata, you can use that and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Ibata is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibata user earns $256 a year. I would like to have $256 a year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. I might go fancy dinner personally, but I could justify any of those three easily. I don't know if I could do the shopping. I don't shop that much, but you might. So right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibata app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Check out Ibata today. That Team Out West, episode 3, shorter than the other ones, about 10 minutes in length. These are all incredibly worth your time. If you have not checked them out, the Oregon Social Department, which has always been good, they just keep upping the ante. They just keep saying, you know what, let's make something even better. You know what, let's do something even cooler. And this is essentially, for those who have not seen these yet, this is Oregon's own in-house produced Hard Knocks, behind the scenes footage and audio and interviews, and Joel Klatt is there to talk about a couple of different things. I'm sure his stuff has already been recorded. They splice it in. Like the level of audio and video production is just chef's kiss. It is truly, truly wonderful. So this one was all about speed, and there was a lot of nostalgia in this one, not just for Oregon fans like myself, who grew up as Oregon was becoming, quote unquote, that team out west that had the facilities and Nike and was all about speed and flash under Chip Kelly. How fast can the offense go? How fast the players can you recruit? Guys like DeAnthony Thomas and Michael James, Kenyon Barner, they're all speed backs. They weren't big power guys. They had LeGarrette Blount, but that was about it, right? It was all predicated on speed, being faster than your opponent. And it had that element of nostalgia for Oregon fans, but then it went all the way back to Steve Prefontaine and Tracktown and Hayward Field. Roderick Pleasant was a guy mentioned in this particular episode. I'm curious to see, and I don't expect this to be the case, because what they're trying to do is craft a social product, not necessarily to, deliver a behind-the-scenes look at what Oregon's depth chart is going to be. So if Roderick Pleasant works his way into the Oregon rotation this year in the secondary, would I be surprised? No. Do I expect it just because he was featured in this video? Also no, because Roderick Pleasant runs track for Oregon because Tracktown USA. Why the heck wouldn't he? And he is billed accurately as the fastest guy on this Oregon team, which is crazy because there are a lot of speedsters out there. Tez Johnson is really fast. Pleasant's the fastest guy. I wonder who else would qualify as Kenyon Sadiq, maybe. You get him at full speed, I bet you he could keep up with a lot of people. Evan Stewart's really quick. Evan Stewart's quick and shifty, but this one was all about speed. I don't know why I was so much shorter than the other ones. I got to the end of watching it for 10 minutes, and I went back and watched it again because I wanted more. Look at me. In that moment right there, I felt like some of you on those select days where I don't have a show or I don't do a show, like, not going to be able to do a show here. Some of you get very upset. Jokingly, it's all in good fun. Like, by all means, I'm good with it. But that's how I felt when it came to an end at 10 minutes. It's like, hey, I enjoy this thing. I like this thing. Can you keep it going, please? Like, it's like when you're playing a good round of golf and you get to the 18th hole and you're like, wow, I played 18 great holes. Why am I stopping? I think that all the time. Usually because I have, work or other plans that I have to get to. But every time I play 18 good holes, I think, should I go do that again? Just keep the good times rolling. But really well produced. I don't think there was anything majorly revealing in there. James Crepia said that he, saw a glimpse somewhere. I couldn't find it personally. I might have been looking in the wrong spot, or my video on Twitter was also acting weird, so it might have been cutting off. That there was, a little glimpse of Charlie Pickard taking the first team snaps at center. That gets, those are breadcrumbs. I don't know that it's going to make up an entire slice of bread that Oregon fans want to take a bite out of at one point from an information standpoint. Make of that whatever you would like. It doesn't change, the reality on the ground, which is Oregon has to figure out how to shuffle the offensive line with the Matthew Bedford injury. But I thought the whole concept of speed, and I like the theming of the episodes. I think it's really fun, and I just think they're so well produced. I hope we get these every year. A lot of you have sent me messages before, which I'm very grateful for, by the way, saying, how much you appreciate the show and my keeping it daily all throughout the year to help the time go by and build the excitement level for a given Oregon football season, right? And this is now the third one that I will have had the privilege of covering once it comes to a close here on the show. And that's the whole point. That's why I put out daily content for all of you and bonus episodes when I can. But these are doing that for me. Like, I watch these and go, oh man, now I want to see the season. Now I want to see. I mean, they got the speed performance coach talking in there, and Rod Pleasant, and Jeff Boss, and all the guys. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to watch these guys play football. So they're on YouTube or they're on Twitter. If you have not seen that team out west yet, go check it out. Like, forget all, whatever other people say about the naming of that team out west and whatnot. Like, these are cool. These are cool. They're really fun. If you're an Oregon fan, it will excite you. Kind of like Ohio State coming to Autzen Stadium on October 12th. I will not be there for that game. My dad will. I'm jealous because, well, I would love to be there for that game. Who the heck wouldn't? So, Ohio State and Oregon, will it be college game day? Should be. You should have a pair of 5-0 preseason top 3 teams. Look, you can go to Texas, Georgia the week after, bypass Red River, showcase the Big Ten's biggest game outside of Ohio State, Michigan, and that's Ohio State and Oregon. I think that's where game day should be. Well, what do you know? It's going to be a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. So this question came in from Bud. Looks like the Ohio State game will be a 7:30 p.m. start. That's 10:30 p.m. Eastern time for the Buckeyes. Seems like that's an advantage for the Ducks. Your thoughts? I'd be curious to know the last time Ohio State played a game on the West Coast that late in the day, because we've seen them play in the Rose Bowl many times over the years. The Rose Bowl starts at, I think, 2 o'clock is the official time, or some time of day. Is it 2 o'clock? Yeah, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock sounds right. I'm going to look it up now because I want to know. Kickoff is 1 p.m. Sorry, 1 p.m. Pacific time is when the Rose Bowl starts. And because it's January, by the time the game is coming to a close, it's the most picturesque setting in all of college football. And it's where the national championship should be every year. You start playing in the daylight, you end playing under the lights, and you get the sunset in between. It's absolutely spectacular. And one of the many reasons that people love the Rose Bowl there. The late kickoff, It doesn't hurt. I definitely think it's more of an advantage for the Ducks than it is a non-advantage. I don't think this is tipping the scales. Like, I didn't see the 7:30 p.m. kickoff and think, oh, Ohio State's toast now. Like, I think it can make an impact, but I think the travel makes a lot more of an impact, and the distance that you have to go, time spent on a plane, time spent on buses, and distance to the stadium from your hotel and all that sort of stuff. I think that impacts an athlete's mental state and physical preparedness for a game far more than the time of day. Like, once you get to a football stadium, you're in it. You're in it. The juice is there. Autzen's going to be rocking. I don't think you're going to have Ohio State players going, oh, man, I'm tired. That was an oddly good fake yawn impression. So, no, I don't think it makes a big impact. If you want to say, tips the scales 2% in Oregon's favor, I don't know that it'll push back on that. But to say that it's majorly swaying the game, no. Don't think it's going to change. I don't think the betting line is going to move. Let's put it that way. So we'll end on that note on what should be the biggest game in the history of Autzen Stadium, most likely, because I don't know that a number one or a top two team other than Oregon has played at Autzen before. To my knowledge, I don't think that's the case. But Ohio State, they'll be number two. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On College Football your second. I host over there Monday through Friday on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this show right now, giving you the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth to get you ready for the season, which starts this weekend. Florida State, Georgia Tech, going to be fun. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.